Mike at it? I guess I need to do some work, because last week I said a lot more in a situation than just forget it. So sounded pretty good. It sounded like something to strive for. Remember my father came home one time. I'm thinking about self-imposed limitations. They're not always self-imposed. They could be voices from my parents from the past. One thing I remember him saying is when he came home from work one day, he goes, "Son, I have to deal with incompetence every day." Now, that was one of the good things he said. One of the bad things that he said that rattled around in my skull for over 3 decades was I was in the garage with him one time and I was helping him fix something. He made me help him. I hated it then. Now I can fix stuff. But anyway, that was a good part to it. But sometimes words can cut like a knife, especially when you're a kid. And I knocked over something or did something wrong. I don't know what it was, and it really doesn't matter. But he got real calm, and that's when you knew you were in trouble, because he didn't yell and scream, and he didn't have to. He said, "Son, don't you know you fuck up more than you fix?" And I remember trying to intellectualize that statement, and I was, in school a little bit, and just, learning pie charts, and I figured out that fucking up more than I fixed meant that 51% of me was a fuck up. That's more than half. I mean, I started really getting after that statement, and it really affected me. And I think that voice stayed with me. I didn't realize it, but I think that's why I spent so much of my life, once I got in recovery and afforded myself the opportunity to take some action that could prove that voice wrong. We talked about self-imposed limitations. I can just say that it's a lie, but sometimes, like our book talks about, our actions are going to speak louder than my words. And I afforded myself an opportunity over some time in recovery to prove that wrong by accomplishing certain things that I thought would absolutely prove it. So now, I'm more educated than my father. Like, that's going to make it be true, but it is true because I don't fuck up more than I fix. And on a daily basis, I get to prove that. Another voice from the past, and I think what the topic is and what I got from the reading was, I'm not consigned to be what I saw when I was a child. And my father also, when we're kids, that's where these voices are created. So I've got another example, and it's what I don't want to be. Sometimes, teachers are people who do what we don't want as well as what we want. We got to look for everybody to be our teachers. And Dad always would say small, disparaging things to my mother. He not always say it, but when he said it, you could hear the deafness. Because I'm an only child, but the whole situation stopped, and you could see her shrink. And I was never big enough to take up for her. Not that it was a fighting thing, but it was just saying anything, because you really didn't talk back to him, military dad and all that shit. So I had about 20 years, and I was over there. I go visit him every 3 months, and we were having lunch outside. I'll never forget this. And he says one of those comments. And she shrinks down in her chair. And I guess at that point I thought I was a grown-up, because I was. But I still, when with parents, we can still feel like that child. I don't know if anybody can relate to that. But something came out of my mouth. I didn't see it coming. He said that, and I saw Mom shrink, and I said, just like a man would say, it was very bizarre to hear myself say it. I said, "Dad, I don't ever want to hear you talk to Mom that way again." And she sat up a little bit, and he joked it off. But of course, 4 days later, I get a certified mail, a disownment letter that he had spent like 38 hours writing with maximum Ginsu knife cutness. And, he put me in my place, and, basically, no, their relationship is none of my business, and no matter how old I think I get or how clean I think I get or how much clean time I think I get, I need to remember who's the boss and all this. But here's the silver lining. He's never spoken to her that way in my presence since then. So sometimes we have to take a risk and fly in the face of those lies that I was told, or I felt that I was told by their actions of who I'm supposed to be. I'll never amount to anything. It's a lie. I've got to take actions in recovery to prove that it's a lie so I can believe that it's a lie. Otherwise, I will go through the rest of my life thinking that 51% of me fucks up more than it fixes. Only can recovery give me that opportunity to prove that. I can't do it with the dope on my back. Taking a chance to tell my father what I've wanted to tell him all my life, regardless of what backlash came of it. I got to take up for my mom. You know, and it almost gets me emotional to think about it. And I know I'm not the only one that say, you know, I don't want to take up for my mom too. But these things that recovery has afforded me the opportunity to do helps me break the bonds of those self-imposed crises and those crises and those self-imposed limitations and those limitations that were not self-imposed, the ones that were imposed by these other people in authority over me, and it may be the courts. We can get pardons and expungements in recovery. I've known people that have done it. Things can get cleaned up, but I've got to stay clean to do it. So there's nothing that's broken that can't be fixed if you're in here and you hear the sound of my voice and you're new and you don't think you have what it takes and you still have those voices from the past and they're so loud you can't hear anything else. I'm here to say that recovery will make it possible to drown out those lies and replace it with new positive things. I'll pass.